Hey, it's Jer, right? It's kind of funny, I think, how you um, get a little uncomfortable talking about these sorts of spiritual things because I get the same way. It's definitely outside the realm of either rational argument or scientific um, research. I mean, there's no way to provide evidence for something like reincarnation. Um, Although I don't necessarily think that's true. I think people have provided evidence for it. Um, Ian Stevenson's provided quite a bit of evidence for it. Critics argue that it's anecdotal evidence, but um, still, I think there's a lot of data that backs up, or that at least should provoke our interest in the possibility of this phenomenon. Because when it comes to consciousness, um, science as a whole hasn't established anything. Um, there are fields within science where you'll hear all kinds of things about what consciousness is, but overall, there's no clear scientific picture about the nature of consciousness. At least nothing nearly as clear as the scientific picture of, um, you know, macroscopic space and time, or um, the scientific consensus that at least the equations of quantum physics are accurate. Um, there may not be a consensus about what they mean or what they are referring to in reality, but there's consensus that they work, um, mathematically speaking, and in terms of predictions of experiments. So we don't know much about consciousness, and so I don't think I mean, it's certainly speculation to talk about reincarnation, but it's not necessarily something um, we should feel um, as if we're trespassing if we talk about, because it's not trespassing. It's actually um, sincerely uh, investigating the nature of your own experience. That's what consciousness is, and I think when you do start to consider the people that you meet in your life, and if you take your life as something meaningful, you take it seriously, then every person that you meet is an opportunity for you to come to know yourself in another way. Um, and the people in your lives, like you said, there's almost a certain extent that you seem to choose them, and you choose them to learn something about them, but also about yourself through your encounter with them. It's as though, and reincarnation is so widespread in so many belief systems. Plato, Buddhists, um, almost all, you know, Hindus, um, Jains, even some, uh, esoteric Christians like Rudolf Steiner, and anthroposophy and theosophy. Um, it's everywhere. Reincarnation is the norm, really, for cultural systems. There's a lot of mainstream Christians that don't believe in it, but and probably, well, see, a Sufi mystic may believe in reincarnation, a Jewish mystic may, a Christian mystic may, but the Judeo-Christian traditions, at least exoterically, for at least on the surface, are not in any way accepting of reincarnation, and certainly materialism. Well, materialism isn't necessarily a rejection of reincarnation, because as a materialist, you've got to say something about the nature of consciousness. Like, either it's if it's an illusion, it's still phenomenally real. So maybe it phenomenally reincarnates, right? Um, so materialism, I'm not sure if it's necessarily going to reject reincarnation, but I think it's got to be what's going on. I mean, even if it is going on, we still have to ask, well, what is it exactly? You know, when the Buddhists say that reincarnation is a reality, they also say that there is no self, there's no essential soul. So, what is it that's being born again? What is it that is being transferred from one life to the next? Um, and some answers are, from different Buddhist traditions are that deeds and actions and karma is reborn, and it doesn't necessarily stick to some soul that passes along, but there's this, you know, rebirth. There are always these new people on the earth living, and they inherit the situations that the past generations have put them in. They inherit the karma, and so the culture of the human being, our whole species, um, that came before the particular people that are alive right now, is in some sense responsible for who we are and where we are historically. Um, they've given us the past, which was their present, and we are doing the same now for our own future. Our own future. But see, that's the question about ownership. There's really, at least from the Buddhist perspective, no owner of karma, so there is no you who reincarnates. Um, there's no personality that survives death, certainly. But there's something subtle, maybe, beneath the personality that reincarnates, that remains awake. During, after death, before birth, with birth, something remains present in the background. But because it's in the background, it almost seems like it's not there. Like it's a whole, HOLE. But it's also whole, it's what's enveloping everything. All the phenomena that arise in experience. All of that is held by this Buddha nature that reincarnates. Um, but again, depending on how it reincarnates, karma builds up, and the story goes that Buddha had good karma. So how did all these good deeds from the past sort of coalesce and bind together in this single being named Buddha? Perhaps he wasn't a single being, but was the central node on the larger social phenomena. Just happened to elevate, a particular being to the top at that particular moment. There's nothing really special or essentially unique about the Buddha, however. And then, of course, when we start talking about Christianity and reincarnation in the context of that religion, I think it's a little different because, for most Christians, there is something unique about Jesus of Nazareth, the Christ. It is that he is the Christ. That's what's different. It's, Christianity seems to require that there be this special being, and so how did that reincarnation, at least in the sense of deeds being reincarnated, doesn't seem possible in that picture, in that Christian picture. It seems more like we are separate souls. So we could be reincarnating as separate souls, but